Welcome back to Strategy Simplified. Today I'm excited to bring you a conversation with Michael Valocchi, SVP and head of Cognizant Consulting. Cognizant Consulting sits at the intersection of business and tech, helping their clients every step along the way, from issue identification through execution. The firm is hiring rapidly, so if you're interested in the digital transformation space, I hope you stay tuned to learn more, and I hope you enjoy the discussion. Michael, welcome to the Strategy Simplified podcast. We really appreciate having you on today.
Thanks, Stephanie. I just really appreciate this as our initial conversation. Should be fun.
Looking forward to getting to learn more about you and your background. Wonder if we could start there. Could you walk us through your career path and journey up to where you're at today?
Sure. So I like to say I'm an accidental consultant. So what I mean by that is I actually started out as an accountant, and in the finance area, they asked me to do a rotation through consulting before I made audit partner. And I just never left because I frankly figured out I wasn't that good of an audit partner and really didn't like it as much as I thought I did. So, the reason I stayed is I don't know if I could ever do a real job. I just love the consulting piece of my life. You know, career-wise, I've honestly been with almost the same company a long time. PwC, Coopers, into IBM, and then I joined Cognizant 2.5 years ago as a consulting leader, and just really love this place.
I do want to come back to that timing, but before we get there, can you just tell us a little bit more about Cognizant? What's your value proposition for clients? What's the angle that you have in the industry?
Yeah, I could bore you with it's, a couple 100,000 people and clients from all over. But a couple pieces that really drew me to Cognizant is one, it's not that old of a company. It's about 27, 28 years old, started from zero to a couple 100,000 people and $19 billion in revenue. So pretty interesting growth story. But to me, the really important thing is what is our value proposition to client? And honestly, it comes down to what we say is intuition engineered, is we're here to solve companies' problems. And it's even interesting if you ever take our logo and it kind of rotates a little bit. And one of the reasons it rotates is we try to think about our clients' problems from all different angles. So you come at it from an engineering perspective, but also from a business and a technology perspective. From an industry point of view, banking and healthcare are some of our largest industries, but communications and technology have been the fastest growing industries for us for the last little bit in the company.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Cognizant Consulting, one area of business within the larger organization of Cognizant. What fraction of the business is your consulting arm, and how do the different business units and business practices interact with each other?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Cognizant Consulting it is a piece of the business, but it's actually a transformational piece of the business. So one of our focuses at Cognizant is really to change the dialogue with our clients. And Cognizant Consulting, which has really been around for a decade in some form or fashion, is meant to be that front end of what we do from a Cognizant perspective. So the way we think about it is helping our clients solve from a consulting perspective, be that bridge between business and technology, and really anticipate our clients' problems and do a little more of the thinking, while the rest of Cognizant is then doing a lot of the doing. So while it may not be the hugest piece of Cognizant, it's probably one of the most important pieces of Cognizant as we're driving our clients to something just a little bit different in this ever-changing world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would anticipate, correct me if I'm wrong, but as we think back to the birth of Cognizant Consulting, perhaps at the beginning, it would allow clients to better understand and lead them towards the service offerings that broader Cognizant had. But I would imagine over time, Cognizant Consulting has enabled the broader business to be more innovative and speak to the real needs of clients, creating new services, et cetera. And maybe that initial kind of value proposition has shifted. Is my hypothesis correct in any way?
That's definitely, it is really interesting. And I've got a discussion at our strategy session of the board in a couple of weeks. And some of it, we're talking about this evolution of consulting within a large scale technology firm can take a lot of different forms. We could be, and honestly, we did start there. Exactly what you're talking about is, hey, we're the front end and kind of pre-sales of the rest of Cognizant. Well, frankly, it's hard to build a consulting business that just does that. So this is where we've morphed into a really a management consultancy within a larger technology where we're building out careers in consulting, and we'll talk a little bit about who we're recruiting and things like that. So it's kind of morphed. And then you actually got onto a point that we're discussing with our CEO on the board is how do we then incubate for the rest of the company? So two things is we want to be more advisory as a company, and consulting is helping that. We're not the only consultative people in the company. We want everybody to be consultative. So I can help drive that. The second thing is I want to be an incubator for talent out in the rest of the company. So, for example, I just took one of my consultants and he's becoming a client partner. I've taken another consultant who's now running one of the strategic business units. So it's, hey, you come out of consulting, you actually will be a better technology provider, a better delivery person. And I kind of go back to my beginnings is why did I go into consulting? So I could be a better auditor within the larger scale company. And that's why I want to be that talent magnet for the rest of the company as well.
It's a really unique opportunity that you're kind of giving to people that come into the consulting arm. And it sounds like also an opportunity to engage with you, become better critical thinkers and problem solvers for those not within the consulting business, but just in broader Cognizant as you think about and curate that entrepreneurship, that incubation, that, and really understanding clients' needs and then being able to drive to technological solutions that actually meet those needs, et cetera. Makes a lot of sense.
And Stephanie, I do see us as a little different than a lot of the other consultancies because of that, because of where we live. I mean, I think of us as, is we're providing some strategies, but they're a lot more executable. They're a lot more grounded in technology because who we are as a company. And I just brought on another class of MBAs and undergrads, and I'm very honest with them. Like, listen, if you just want to do pure strategy or pure business cases and things like that, I've got friends at other consulting firms, and that's a good place for you. If you want to be part of a roadmap to execution, then come here. And you know what? It's not for everybody. And people are like, oh, I'd rather do that. So again, the reason I love being here is it is something unique in the marketplace.
So you've already spoken a little bit to the fact that Cognizant Consulting sits in between business and technology. You've spoken a little bit to some of the industries that you work within, but can you tell us more about your broader work portfolio, your service offerings to your clients, your specializations?
Yep. So a great question, because one of the things as you're building a consulting unit is you don't want to be everything to everybody. So one of the things that we've talked about with our CEOs, who are we and who are we not? Because that's such an important piece. So a couple areas that I wanted to point out is one, in each of the industries, we're doing work around operating model and architecture of the business. And to me, that's very industry specific. And that's important. Some things that we're bringing from a cross-industry perspective is one in the process area. We see the building of the modern business. We think process is a really important component of it. So we're doing work in the finance, the customer, HR, supply chain area. So that's become a crux of our strategy. The other piece that's really important to us is what we call technology modernization. Is what are the strategies, not just for cloud, but the rest of the technology portfolio from a data perspective, from a innovation perspective, what's on the horizon for the next 1 or 2 years. And so that's a very big piece of our business around technology strategy. And the last piece is wrapped around this is a transformation component. How do you think about organizational change? How do you think about organizational design? How do you think about culture and bring it all together? So that's really the crux of it. If I could draw you a picture, it would be industry at the top and these kind of layer caked behind it. There's certain things that are great markets that I'd love to do, but I think, we don't have a value proposition to do. So I'm very selective in what we build. And then if I can, my answer is way too long, but the next thing I'm adding, I'm about to bring on a head of sustainability consulting on a global basis, because I think that's a next frontier of where we can really help our clients. So he joins me on September 15th to help continue to build out that practice for me.
Oh, that makes a ton of sense. I'm so glad that you mentioned and spoke to the culture change element, organizational transformation, these broader elements. Do you view that as separate specializations within Cognizant Consulting, or does every operator and consultant take on that mindset?
So it's kind of a microcosm of that is yes, I have a number of trained organizational change people that go through certifications, but honestly, I expect every one of my consultants to have that mindset of how do you help a client move from here to there. So they become my incubator of that skill. Now we may do projects around that, but if I'm running, so we build a digital bank for one of our clients, is every one of the consultants on that project has to understand how is that going to impact, how the culture needs to be different in that digital bank vis-a-vis the rest of the company. So it does infiltrate through things, as you said.
Would love to make this a little more practical, tangible for our listeners. Could you walk us through one example engagement, something interesting that you or some of your colleagues have worked on recently?
Yeah, I will. And unfortunately, I can't give you the name of this client.
Sure.
It's in the energy industry. So this was a fascinating engagement because it started out actually on the other side of our business, and it was a request for proposal of, hey, we need to consolidate a couple GIS systems. So, hey, can you come do that? And we flipped it on its head. We actually went back into the client and said, you know what? That's not the problem here. It's not the fact that you've acquired 5 different companies and 5 different systems. Actually, the problem here is from a digital energy perspective, from the transformation you want to do as an energy company, your platform's not right. So let's re-architect the business model and the platform and the processes. Oh, and then by the way, you're right. We probably need to get everything on one technology platform. So it was an interesting mix of some industry expertise. So our utility expertise could vision it out. Then our process people came in and said, okay, this is how the process needs to look end to end. And then we have some technologies that are building out the systems. But what I love about it is you flipped it on its head and said, you're not looking at this correctly.
I could imagine that conversation could go in a number of ways. And I've been a part of some of those conversations to come in and say, this isn't the real problem, or the problem is a lot bigger than you initially thought. What's the approach or mindset or culture within Cognizant where you're able to build a relationship, have that trust, and go to your clients and succeed in those types of conversations?
Yeah, so it's interesting because it's twofold, as well as it's also helping my client partners for the broader Cognizant to have the bravery and the courage to have that conversation. Because Stephanie, as you can imagine, that client partner say, well, yeah, interesting idea, but I have a piece of work here that I can go do. So part of our job in the company is to help the client partner have the courage to have the conversation. The second piece is the makeup of who I'm bringing in from a consulting perspective. So I have some like dyed-in-the-wool consultants like myself who've been at some of the big name consultancies, but I also have reached into certain industry-specific technology firms and software firms and brought some of those practical people out. And then one of my magics is also bringing people from industry and teaching them to be a consultant. Mm-hmm. So when we actually had this conversation with the client, they could look at us and say, okay, it's not just a high-level consultant saying this. You actually have people who've done this before and have hands-on keyboards and been in the business. So doing that dual kind of transformation is important as we're doing these.
We'll be right back after this quick message from our sponsor. Want to work for a fast-growing consulting and advisory firm? Palmtree is looking to fill positions across its U.S. offices. If you're currently an employee at a top accounting or advisory firm seeking to break into the M&A industry, or if you're a student interested in learning the M&A lifecycle through an extensive internship program and boot camp, consider Palmtree. Private equity clients turn to Palmtree to identify and solve their most complex M&A finance issues, including carve-outs and challenging integrations. The firm is a trusted advisor to elite private equity firms, guiding clients through the entire investment lifecycle. If you've got a flair for finance but want the challenge of consulting, apply today through the link in this episode's show notes or on the careers page at palmtreellc.com.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for laying out that example. As we think about the role that you play at the intersection of tech and business, are there other examples that you'd like to highlight to help our listener base understand that a little bit better?
Yeah, the other one is a good example, and I alluded to a little bit, is a client that we had that was building out a digital bank. Now, this client had some concepts out there, and he got in it. Extremely smart client. What we helped him do was hone in the concepts and get to the point where we're going to take this bank to a specific set of healthcare clients. And it came out of a business case that we did, but we're able to help him take it at a much more practical level. So he could actually build out the platform, but then, let's go after the mid-level medical practices, which I thought was very interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that until we did these sessions. And then next we can go after agriculture. And what he really liked about the work we did, it was practical. Because then he could say, okay, I got to build a platform to deliver this. So you haven't just given me a strategy. Now I've got the platform, and we're in the midst of actually building out the platform for him on, a piece by piece. And the reason I bring that up is it took very strong industry expertise, as well as technical and operating model and process expertise, which is to me that intersection piece that I keep talking about.
Lots of different specializations need to be required, large scale efforts, huge investments on behalf of probably many of your client engagements, exciting work. And it's also very cutting edge work. I mean, digital transformation is the path forward. At any given time, 80% of organizations say that they're in some type of transformation. And yet, looking in hindsight, such a low percentage of organizations feel that they are successful in the transformations that they undertake. From your perspective, when you look at digital transformation broadly, what are some of the things that you're getting excited about? What are some of the trends that you're seeing?
Yeah, it's, I was about to say this, and it almost feels like an overused trend, but I'm actually excited about the cloud journey. So, and I've been around a little while, and we've talked about cloud for a while. And the reason I'm so excited about it is we're going over this chasm of just moving to the cloud to innovating on the cloud. So we finally figured that, hey, it's not just about the technology, it's about the innovation that I can do on the cloud. And I think that trend, frankly, got accelerated with COVID. And I'm not the first one who has said that. But it's also I think the technology has come a long way. And I really respect the major hyperscalers and what they've done in the past decade to really make this a proven technology. So the first thing I'm really excited about is that innovation on the cloud. The second one is the democratization of IT. So is, again, I date myself, is I learned Fortran in college. And, and I got out of it because, oh my God, I don't know how to do this, is anybody can code now.
Yeah.
No code, low code. And in some ways, as a large scale technology firm, maybe you say I should be scared about that, because then do I need these thousands of people? And actually, I'm excited about it because it actually changes how you look at a problem and how you look at it. You're going to need the consultants, the process and the business consultants. You're going to need the high-end architects, even if anybody can code in the middle. And I think that trend is going to open up possibilities like there's never been. And then automations, ones out there. The last one I'll wrap around this is the whole experience, is customer experience, the employee experience, and the partner experience. Is how do we make the experience better for everyone? And that trend, I don't think is going away anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the ability to be able to observe that experience, to measure that experience, to be able to have a more rapid iteration cycle around that. Totally agree. The citizen developer, with low code, no code, it's just it's really revolutionary.
It really is. And you see the coders coming out of high schools and community colleges. And for me, as a leader of a consulting group, that's phenomenal opportunity for me, because you're always going to need us to build out that architecture, to build out the business models.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, would love to. I'm sure that many of our listeners have been excited to hear about this space, want to pivot it back towards, recruiting efforts, hiring at the company. Actually, I want to start with, I saw on your bio that it looks like you joined, of all the timings, in April of 2020, if I'm correct. So you got a first row seat at the way that Cognizant Consulting navigated through the pandemic and COVID, and now coming out of that era. I just wonder if you could briefly speak to what you've learned through that period of interacting and working differently with your teams and clients, and what type of work model, virtual, hybrid, et cetera, you're in right now.
Yeah, no, it's you're right. I joined April 1st. A computer showed up at my house, and I was living in London at that point, and somebody called me, and it got all done. And then literally for the next 5 months, I just stared into the screen. And so, yeah, it's been a journey. And for somebody coming out of consulting for so long, you used to work with clients and things like that. So a couple of things that it taught me, and then I'll talk about what we're doing is one, you can make things work. The world is so resilient. We're all much more resilient. But then the challenge that it has is, how do we get engagement in a hybrid world? And a couple of things that I think are really important is listening and meeting people where they are, and engaging them on some fun activities that you can do for that. But you also got to sprinkle a little in person in it. So we are doing that for, I'm here in New York City in our office. We've got to get together at the end of the day here in our office. Got to have a little bit of that, because I don't think that's going away. We've also looked at how do people want to be communicated from. But I got to tell you, one of the really exciting parts for me is I think this changes the diversity for us. I started in consulting where I was on a plane mostly every Sunday night, came back later Friday. We don't have to do that anymore. We can actually have a work-life balance where I say to most of my consultants, if you don't want to travel, I think I can accommodate that. If you want to travel, I can accommodate that as well. I think this is going to be a transformation in the consulting world like we've never seen before. It's going to open up the profession to people who maybe wouldn't have been in the profession 5-10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we can absolutely support that assertion from our side here at Management Consulted. We're seeing a broader diversity of profiles who are interested, specifically wanting to lean into some of those flex models or virtual models that may exist that didn't before. So, broadly speaking, pivoting it back to your current hiring and recruitment process, where are you hiring? What are you hiring for? What kind of people are you looking for?
Yep. So we're on a full-scale hiring binge. I've got a new head of recruiting who started with me about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And she says, "Oh, you mean I have to hire this many people before the end of the year?" I said, oh, yes, Catherine. This is what you'll be doing. So a couple areas. I'll start broadly is like I said, I want to continue with this diversity of hiring. So I don't want the profiles to all look the same. So like I said, I've given a pretty broad remit on where we're going to find our consultants. That's one. Is we are doing various levels. So like I said, I just hired a VP of sustainability. So I'm hiring even at that level, number of mid-level people. The other exciting thing for me that we hadn't done enough of is that entry level. So I'm in my second year of doing internship programs, and that has been so wonderful. I had 100 undergrads and grads join us over the past 2 months. And so to me, building out a consultancy that was a little bit of a missing piece of our puzzle as we move them up through the ranks. So, geographically we're not putting limitations on it, which is kind of fun. I would love our newer people to start in some of our hubs in Dallas and Atlanta and New York if we could. The other area that's really interesting and exciting for me is Canada. I have a growing base of consultants in Toronto and Montreal. The schools up there, Stephanie, are just wonderful schools, just wonderful schools.
That's very exciting. So I'm sure that there are, people's ears perked up when they learned in general about your business and area, and then it perked up even more to hear, oh, you're hiring, and maybe extensively. So,
and we have a LinkedIn Live page too. So
perfect.
If people want to get some more, go to our LinkedIn Cognizant Consulting LinkedIn Live page, and you'll see some of the fun we're having around the world.
What are some of the qualities that you look for? What makes a good Cognizant consultant?
Intellectual curiosity is my top. Is you need to want to learn. You need to want to be curious and tinker and work through. So I think, like I do various degrees. Like I'm not, I'm a finance person. So a little finance is always good. You know, from your early careers is numbers always count. But having that very different types of people, but as long as you have that intellectual curiosity, the other thing is be comfortable with ambiguity. Is you'll work on different things with different clients. So are you creative enough to be able to have that? And then last thing is communication skills. Is written and oral are just so important. It's just, we're working on, a presentation for the board, and just how you tell your story. You'll laugh as I'm still a Minto. If I was in my home office, I'd show you my Minto book, but we actually were, oh, do you have that? And Barbara,
it's just outside of my arm's reach. Yep, absolutely.
And I actually had the wonderful experience to have Barbara teach the course. So it very scary because I don't think I was that good in her mind, but we actually just the deck we're doing for the board, it was situation, complication, and being able to communicate. That's really my third one, that you really have to have that.
Well, what's that hiring process like for you at Cognizant Consulting? I'm guessing that there's some behavioral fit questions. Probably you have some case discussions or some business problems you walk through with them live. What should they be prepared for?
Yeah, so a couple of things. You kind of hit on there is, for me, cultural and behavioral fit is really important. So it is that art of questioning to see, will you fit here? Will you? And it's not even from my perspective, but Stephanie, will you enjoy working here? Case studies. I hate to say I'm old school, huge believer in case studies. And we've actually streamlined a little bit of our case studies so that the experience is the same, regardless if you're if you're coming into our BFS practice or you're coming into our healthcare practice. So having that case study is really important. Our number of interviews is not that great. So we're trying to, you only really probably need to talk to a couple of us to really get that fit. because I'm not a believer in a 10 interview process. And our recruiters do a lot of the early screenings. I have a group of experienced recruiters that are helping screen that process. So, honestly, those of you listening, it's not that painful of a process.
Well, I'm sure that people will be going to that LinkedIn page that you referenced, going to, review Cognizant Consulting on your main business website. We'll make sure to put all those links down in the show notes to the podcast. Any other, in terms of recruiting and hiring, any other thoughts here that you wanted to add or share?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that we're building a unique experience here at Cognizant Consulting. It's something that I've experienced over the past 2 years, and I just think it's a wonderful place to be. And the work that we're doing with clients, our focus is around the Global 2000 clients. There's not every place that you get to do the things you get to do here.
Well, Michael, I really appreciate you taking the time to share a little bit more with us about the business and your hiring. But we have a tradition here at Strategy Simplified. We want to close out the conversation just to learn a little bit more about you personally. Have a couple of fun questions prepped. If you'd be willing to share with us, what do you think the most unique food is that you've ever eaten?
No, it's interesting. It was in China. And it was some of the fish head and different things of that nature. And honestly, for me, it was a little daunting because I was at a dinner where I was one of the most senior people there. And until I ate something, nobody around the table would eat. So,
yes,
Stephanie, I had to.
I understand that situation completely. So here's another one for you. As you look in the rearview mirror, what's one piece of career or life advice that you would share with your 25-year-old self?
Let the path and journey reveal itself to you. Is honestly, there is one of my dreams is is help people in their early career. Is you try to plan everything out. Well, I have to be this level by this, that. And just honestly, let it reveal itself to you, because it actually does.
Wise words. Absolutely. And you already in this conversation spoke to the fact that, it's not all work and no play. At Cognizant, you're able to find a work-life balance. So what are some things you like to do in your free time? What do you like to do on the weekend?
Yeah. So I have the wonderful opportunity to live right in New York City. So there's a couple of things we do almost pretty regularly. First, we probably have the cutest dog in the entire world, who comes to Central Park with us every Saturday for some of the most beautiful walks that we do. Love Broadway shows. There are some weekends that we'll do double matinees. We'll do a matinee on a Saturday, matinee on a Sunday. My wife sits on the board of one of the Broadway theaters, so love that. And frankly, I'll read voraciously. So I will. At any point in time, I'll be reading one or two different books. So.
Throw another one at you then. Anything that you're reading now that you would recommend?
Yeah, it is interesting. I'm in the middle of, and I'm a history buff, I'm in the middle of a book on Kissinger's leadership lessons. And you forget what a great man he was and some of the things he does. And so some of the, I've read the Colin Powell ones, but this Kissinger one's really fascinating on some of the things and from a leadership perspective.
Interesting. Well, Michael, it's been great to get to know you. Great to learn more about Cognizant Consulting. We just really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. Make sure to check out the links in the show notes to learn more about Cognizant Consulting and how to apply for their open positions. And make sure you're ready to navigate through live case study conversations by using Management Consulted's resources and platform. We have a set of ex-McKinsey, Bain, and BCG professional coaches on staff to diagnose if you're ready and help you improve. Check out the link in the show notes to learn more. We'll see you next time.